Title: Bashar al-Assad and Captagon, The Trade of War and Influence. Scene 1, Political background. Quick shots of Syria's devastation, bombing, and the chaotic events from the start of the Syrian civil war. Narrator. Since 2011, Syria has witnessed one of the most brutal wars in the region's history. Bashar al-Assad, who inherited power from his father, Hafez al-Assad, found himself facing a popular uprising that turned into a devastating civil war. But amidst this violent conflict, a new trade emerged that helped prop up the Syrian regime, the trade of Captagon. Scene 2, The Rise of the Captagon Trade. Footage of secret factories in regime-controlled areas. Narrator. Captagon is a stimulant drug containing the substance phenethylline, initially used to treat some mental health issues but later widely abused as a recreational drug in the Middle East. As the war escalated, there was a dire need for funding, and Captagon became the answer. In areas controlled by the Syrian regime, particularly in border regions, Captagon factories began to emerge in secrecy. From these factories, huge quantities of drugs were produced and smuggled across borders to countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Lebanon. Scene 3, Militias and the Regime. Shots of armed militias in war zones. Narrator. This trade was not limited to the Syrian regime alone, it involved several militias loyal to the regime, such as Hezbollah and other armed groups. These interconnected networks ensured the flow of drugs into the market, generating massive amounts of revenue, which in turn helped strengthen Assad's influence. It is well known that a large portion of this money was used to fund military operations, making the Captagon trade a key source of financing for the regime's war efforts against opposition forces. Scene 4, Impact on Society. Footage of people addicted to Captagon in Syrian streets. Narrator. While these funds flowed into the regime's coffers, the impact on Syrian society was devastating. Captagon became widely used among the youth in war-torn areas. People in Syria began to turn to drugs as an escape from their daily suffering, leading to rampant addiction and the destruction of lives. Scene 5, International Consequences. Footage of politicians in international meetings, media reports on Captagon shipments being seized. Narrator. On the international stage, the global community repeatedly issued warnings about Syria's role in the drug trade, with Captagon becoming one of the primary security concerns in the region. Countries like Saudi Arabia began to ramp up their efforts to combat Captagon smuggling across their borders. Reports indicated that some individuals close to the Syrian regime, including businessmen connected to the government, were behind these criminal networks. Scene 6, The Endgame. Footage of continued devastation in Syria, with increasing international aid efforts. Narrator. Today, as the war in Syria continues, the Captagon trade also thrives. However, with increasing international intervention, some governments have started to take stricter measures to fight this trade. The question remains open: how long will Syria remain a battleground for global powers and local wars? And will Captagon trade continue to be a part of the story of this conflict? The end.